It's almost there. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're well. Thanks for tuning in. It's Rabbi Akiva Males in Memphis, Tennessee, and today is the 27th of August, and we are getting ready for Parshas Shoftim. And I'm happy to share some Divrei Torah with you that I hope will make this parsha a bit more meaningful. One of the items that shows up in Parsha Shoftim is all the way at the end of the Parsha, and it's the ritual that's known as Egla Arufa. Egla Arufa means the young calf whose neck is broken or decapitated. It's a very mysterious ritual, and I want to explore it with you today and share some sources on it. I'm always fascinated by this each year as this approaches. So let's take a look at the verses that actually describe this. It's at the end of the Torah portion of Shoftim, and you'll find that it's Perek Chaf Aleph, that's chapter 21, and it's on our handout. So let's see together rather. The Torah says, Ki matzeh chalo ba'adama. If a slain person is found in the land, Asher Hashem Elokecha nosein l'chal rishta, the land that God gave you to possess, nofel b'sadeh, and it's lying in the field, lo noda mi hilkahu, and it's just not known who killed this person. So basically, there is a traveler. We find someone who was a victim of a crime that was murdered, and we have no idea who killed him. And this person is just left, and it's a total mystery. So the elders and the judges, it's their responsibility to go forward, and they should measure to the cities all around the corpse. And it'll be the city that's closest to the corpse. So whatever city is found to be, when we do our measurements, is found to be the closest city to where the dead body was found, that city's responsibility is to take a calf that's never been worked before. It's never been used for any type of labor. It's never pulled. It's never no yoke was on it. It's never pulled any wagons. Dalid. They bring that young calf down into the stream bed or a valley where there used to be a stream. They go into this rugged valley that was never was tilled, it was never sown, no seeds were ever planted there. And there in that valley, they decapitate the calf. They basically take an axe and they hack it from the back of the neck. They break its neck and they lop off its head. You can see with an axe or a big machete. That's the way this animal is killed. Hey, v'nigshu hakohanim b'nei Levi, kibam b'char Hashem Elokecha l'sharso l'varech b'shem Hashem. Then the Kohanim, who are descendants from the tribe of Levi, they come forward because again, remember, it's the Kohanim that have been chosen to serve God and to bless us with God's name. V'al piyam yeh kol riv v'chol nega, and it's based on their word, based on their mouth, and their opinions, that we judge all sorts of controversies. And whenever there's a nega, when there's an affliction involving saras, that spiritual malady. Vav, and then all the elders and the judges of that city, of the city that's close, that was found to be closest to the corpse, Yirchatzuas Yadayim al Egla, they wash their hands over this now decapitated calf. Rufa Benachal, it's had its neck broken, it's had its head lopped off in that valley. Zayin va'anuvi amru, and they respond and they say, Yadenu lo shafchu es hadam hazeh. Our hands did not shed this blood, ve'enenu lo ra'u, and our eyes did not see this crime. Ches 8, Kaper la'amcha Yisrael, and they say, they continue their speech and they ask God, please atone for your people Israel, Asher Padisa, who you have redeemed, V'al titein dam naki b'kerev amcha Yisrael, and don't allow innocent blood amongst your people of Israel, v'nikaper la'am adam, and let this, and so if they go through this ritual, the blood will be atoned for them. One more verse, Tes, and by doing this, you will abolish the shedding of innocent blood from among you. And you'll do what's upright, what's proper in the eyes of God. So those are 9 psukim that appear at the end of our parsha this week. And it really involves a very, I would say, cryptic, a very mysterious ritual. Let's just go over it again. We found a body. Someone was murdered. We're not able to find the killer. And it's like there's this crime that's just looming in the air. The land of Israel has been defiled. Our people has been defiled because someone has been murdered. We don't know who killed him. We have no indications how to proceed. And there's this sense of dread that's hanging over the land of Israel. So the Torah tells us, what do? We go ahead and we create this ritual called the Egla Arufa. Kohanim come out, they come out from the Sanhedrin, they measure, they find the closest city, and whatever that city is, it's their responsibility to provide an egel, a young calf, a calf that has never been worked before, and it's never been used for any type of labor. They bring it down to a valley that's near the murder scene, and they kill it in a very unusual way. They hit it at the back of the neck with an axe or a machete, and they break its neck, lop off its head, and then they wash their hands over it, saying that we bear no responsibility for this murder. We didn't shirk any responsibilities we may have had to have provided. That's the way the Talmud explains it. The Gemara explains that they say we didn't shirk any responsibilities. We made sure that there was no dangerous roads. There were proper policing. If there was any type of lighting issues, there was lighting. If this traveler, we made sure that he had food and water, that he was taken care of. We bear no responsibility. And if this is all done, God will atone the land for this heinous crime that has occurred. That's this mysterious idea of Egla Arufa. Again, it's expanded upon. Rashi, you'll see here, it quotes a lot of passages from the Gemara and Maseches Sota. That's where you find this, that it's really spelled out. For years, what bothered me about this is the manner in which this animal was killed. I have no problem with the fact that the Torah tells us in many instances animals are supposed to be killed. We have korbanos, we have offerings that are brought. Animals are killed all the time. I have no problem with the manner in which the fact that this animal was killed. What just struck me about it is the manner in which it's killed. Whenever we have a korban being brought, we're told that it's supposed to be shechted. It's supposed to be killed in this manner in which is very, very quick. It seems to be as painless as one could imagine, using this razor sharp knife. And we're told that that's the manner in which Hashem desires us to put animals down, whether it's that we're going to consume them, whether it's an animal that's going to be brought as a korban on the Mizbeach. But now we're killing this animal in such an aggressive, violent, it sounds like a very cruel fashion. What's going on here? Why would the Torah require that of us? That was the question that bothered me for years. And then as I began to research this, it hit me. There's one other place in the Torah where we're told that that's the way Hashem desires us to kill an animal. Let's go to page 2. And this is in the top of page 2. I believe this is in Parshas Bishalach, and it's in Sefer Shemos. And it's right after we've been taken out of Mitzrayim. The Exodus has occurred. And we're told that there's an idea that the firstborn chamor, the firstborn donkey that we have, we're supposed to give to a Kohen, which is very unique because a donkey is not a kosher animal. And yet we're told our firstborn donkey is to go to the Kohen. And if we don't want to give our donkey to the Kohen, it says that don't think we're going to profit and that we'll be able to keep it and enjoy having that donkey. Instead, we have to kill that donkey. And how do we kill that donkey? So the pasuk tells us, "V'chol peter chamor tifteh b'seh." Any firstborn donkey, I'm supposed to redeem it with a sheep and then give that sheep to the Kohen, right? I don't give the actual donkey to the Kohen. I redeem it with a sheep and then I give that sheep to the Kohen. And that's still done today. If there's a Jewish farm in Israel, you'll see this every now and then. They have a pidyon peter chamor ceremony where they exchange a sheep for a donkey, and then they give that sheep to a Kohen. And they usually dress up that donkey and the sheep in some kind of festive, they put on banners and ribbons and stuff. They make a whole ceremony on it. The whole city shows up because it's very rarely done. But to this day, this still takes place. If someone has a Jewish farmer has a firstborn donkey, they exchange it with a sheep, they pass its kedusha level onto the sheep, and then they give the sheep to a donkey. But if you don't do this, if you don't redeem it, you don't go through this process, the Torah tells us, don't think you're gonna profit from this by keeping this donkey. Instead, va'arafto, you've got to break the neck of that donkey, the one that you didn't want to exchange for a sheep and then give to the Kohen. You got to break its neck, decapitate it. This is the only other place in the Torah you see this. And again, it reminds us that our firstborn males, we're supposed to redeem them from the Kohen. So again, there are two places in the Torah where the Torah says we're ordered to kill an animal, And it's the way we're described that we're obligated to kill it seems to be in such a cruel and unusual manner. It might take several hacks with that machete or the axe until you kill it. And that's going to cause this animal lots of pain. It seems to be very unusual. The Torah, again, if it's something we're going to eat or something to be brought as a korban, the Torah tells us a very unique, very fast, and seemingly painless way to kill that animal, and that's through shechita. Why in these two instances, by Egla Arufa, here in the end of Shoftim, and by the fellow who refuses to redeem his chamor, his firstborn donkey, for a seh, for a sheep, to give to the Kohen, in those two instances, the Torah says, okay, if you're going to kill that animal, here's the way it needs to be killed. It has to be killed by hacking it on the back of the neck, either with a machete or an axe, and decapitating it. It seems very cruel. It seems to go against everything we know about Sarvali Chaim. Why would the Torah require this of us? So for several years, this bothered me until I finally found two sources which address this. The first source we're going to see is Ralbag. This is an awesome Ralbag to be aware of, and it's in the end of Bishalach. Again, this is addressing the fellow who refuses to to redeem his firstborn donkey with a sheep to give to the Kohen. He's got to break its neck and decapitate it. So the Ralbag, we've spoken out the Ralbags often. Ralbag, what's unique about his Torah commentary, it's really throughout the Torah and Tanakh, throughout Nevi'im and Ksuvim as well, is that aside from authoring a running commentary, he also gives what he calls his toelios, his practical takeaway lessons, what we should learn from the various prakim and parshios in the Torah and in Tanakh. So let's see what he writes here. Hatwalas hashmini hu b'mitzvos. He says the eighth benefit, the eighth lesson to learn involves mitzvos. V'mashet tziva larov peter chamor. The Torah orders us to break the neck and to decapitate that donkey. Im lo nifteh. Oh, so if we don't redeem it with a sheep to give it to the Kohen. V'inyan ha'arifa. What does it mean to break its neck and decapitate it? Hushiyakeu bekofitz me'acharav. It means you're going to whack it with a axe from behind, meaning on the back of its neck, not on the front where you normally do shchita, but on the back of the neck. Mimul arpo, on the back of the neck, ba'ofen shemisu. Hit it enough times with that axe or with a machete until you kill it and basically decapitate it, break its neck and kill it. V'hinei bezeh hapol me'achzarios. I was so happy when I saw this. This is very cruel. The Torah is asking us to do something which is very cruel. It's acknowledging this is not a nice way to kill an animal. Why? Ad shikfar yarchika adam me'asoseh. Because the Torah knows we have a neshama, we have a heart. Who would want to kill a little calf in this fashion? That's a very cruel way to do this. The Torah doesn't want us to do it by telling us, okay, if you don't want to give your chamor to the Kohen, the only way out is to kill your calf, to kill this sheep, rather, not a calf, the sheep in such a cruel and unusual fashion. Who would want to do that? The Torah knows that we would want to stay far away from doing something like this. The Kivna Torah, what the Torah's intent was, by the Torah saying, okay, here's the back door. If you don't want to go through with the pigeon, you don't want to go through with the redemption, the only option is to kill it in such a cruel fashion. The Torah was hoping that would shock us into saying, I'm not going to go through with that. I'd much rather redeem it for a sheep and give my sheep to a Kohen. And that way, the Kohen will benefit from this. In other words, the Torah was saying the only way out, the only plan B, if someone doesn't want to go through with this, is to kill that sheep in such a cruel fashion, which no Jewish person's going to want to do, and that's going to make sure that someone really goes through with what God intended, which was to redeem the donkey for the sheep and give the sheep to the Kohen. And again, if someone were to kill it in that cruel fashion, not only would it be a very cruel thing to do, which is very difficult for any Jew with a beating heart to do something like this, but even after that, it's asur b'hana. I can't get any benefit from it. I can't make a baseball glove out of the leather. I can't use the wool. I certainly can't eat it because it wasn't shechted right. The only purpose of decapitating in this fashion is just to make it that the owner who refused to give it to the Kohen can't get any benefit out of it himself. For murvur shemitzvas Pidia kodemis lemitzvah rifa. It's very clear that God's intent was that we should really redeem it for the sheep and give that sheep to the Kohen. And only if this person, for whatever crazy reason, doesn't want to go through with it, the Torah is saying, okay, you don't want to do that, this is the other option. But it's clear the way Rabbi is understanding this, or Levi Ben Gershon, how he's understanding this is, God didn't want us to do that, but he's making that plan B as almost an incentive. That'll incentivize us to go with plan A, which was to redeem it and give it to the Kohen. I loved this Ralbag. I was very happy when I saw it because it really addressed my question about decapitating, killing in such a cruel fashion when it came to the fellow who refused to do the pidyon peter chamor, to refuse to redeem the firstborn of the donkey. And then I said, you know what? Let's look. Maybe the Ralbag will say the same thing here when it comes to Egla Arufa. But I looked and the Ralbag doesn't have anything here. But you know what I did see who does comment? Rambam. Rambam in his Moreh Nevuchim. Rambam in his Moreh Nevuchim. The third section of Moreh Nevuchim was much like a book of, like the Sefer HaChinuch, which goes through, offers different theories what might be behind the mitzvahs. So Rambam might be the first of our great commentators, Mefarshim, who wrote a book in that genre, offering ta'amei mitzvos, potential theories behind the mitzvos, and that's really what the third section of Moreh Nevuchim is. And when we look at the third section of Moreh Nevuchim, what you're going to see is a fascinating explanation of Egla Arufa, and you'll see it's very closely linked to what Ralbag told us by decapitating, breaking the neck of the sheep of the fellow who refused to redeem the firstborn donkey. Let's see what he says. So I've got on page 2. Here's the Moreh Nevuchim Rambam. He says, "V'amnam Egla Arufa." When it comes to this mitzvah of Egla Arufa at the end of Parshas Shoftim, Toal Tamu V'Oeres, there's a very clear benefit here. Ki amevi osa. Who has to go about this ritual? Who brings this young calf? It's the city that's closest to the corpse, to the murdered victim. V'ala rov, by and large, hahoreg humimenu. The killer probably escaped and went into that town. In other words, Rambam's going to set it up that everything involving Egla Rufa was to create a lot of noise, to create a racket, to create a whole hullabaloo, a lot of pomp and circumstance that's hopefully going to help us find the killer. Rambam's going to set it up. The Torah doesn't want us to ever get to the point where we're going to decapitate this calf. The Torah is going to set it up, and you'll see he's going to talk through the Gemara and Sota that tells us everything that was involved in ritual. The whole point of this was to create such a hullabaloo that we'll never even get to the breaking the neck and decapitating the calf, and this will help us find the killer because we haven't been able to do it till now. So Rambam starts off that by and large we could assume that the killer came from that town and probably escaped to that town. And the elders of that town, and the judges, me'idim aleihem aloka, they have to give testimony before God. Shehim lo hisrashlu b'tikun hadrachim. They were not negligent in any fashion that could have caused this murder. Meaning, all the roads were in good working condition. There were no like sudden switchbacks that went behind some hiding places that where a murderer could have been hiding. Uishmirasan, and they also made sure that there was ample guards. If there was any dangerous areas, there were guards there. Ulatayir kol shoal derech, and there were people on hand who could be tour guides in a sense. If let's say there was a crossroads and people wanted to make sure they were going in the right direction, either there would have been good signage or there would have been people at that crossroad to let people know where to go. So the first thing the judges and the elders have to testify before God is say that this murder did not happen because we were negligent in our communal responsibilities. And they also have to testify, try as we may, we have not been able to get to the bottom of this murder mystery. We have not been able to figure out who killed him. And it is impossible, by and large, 99% of the time, if we really would do a full investigation, if we create this whole hullabaloo, we're specifically creating a racket. Look at this hullabaloo. We're pulling all of the town elders and the judges out of their comfort zone. They have to leave the town to come measure out the distances. V'omdim, and everyone is present. We want to assemble the greatest crowd possible. Ulakichas egla, this whole ritual where we're taking out this young calf. Shlo yirbu divrei b'nei adam. It's impossible that we're not going to create a buzz. The whole goal of the ritual of Egla Rufa was to create a buzz. We want to create all the rumor mill. We want it spinning. We want everyone saying, does anyone know? Anyone have information that can help us find the killer? Maybe with the great publicity that this is going to cause, it'll become known who the killer was. V'yomar mishiyado, and someone will come and testify. He'll say, I could connect the dots. Oh, Shama and Yano, or someone will say, oh my gosh, now I heard something, and it might apply to this. Oh, Haru al-Zeh. Amtelos, or maybe they'll be able to set up various traps and something that will be able to discover who was the killer. Ploni or and we'll be able by creating all this pomp and circumstance, by creating the buzz, we'll finally get to the bottom and figure out who the killer was. Because after a person testifies, afilu isha, and it's not limited to men, even women could come forward. Oh, shifcha, even a maidservant could come forward. Ploni or go, we have information about who the killer was. Lo te'aref agala. We will not go through it, the process to break the neck and to decapitate this calf. So the way Rambam is setting this all up, and he goes on furthermore to even develop this further, but the way Rambam is explaining this is very much in line with Ralbag. Again, Rambam preceded the Ralbag, so it could very well be that Ralbag saw what Rambam wrote here by Egla Arufa and said, I love this idea about Egla Arufa, and I'm going to now connect that to back in Sefer Shemos about what the Torah may have had in mind about breaking the neck of that sheep. In other words, in both places, in other words, Rambam and Ralbag, it could very well be that's what happened. Rambam did, I don't know why, I tried to find this Rambam comment over there in Sefer Shemos about breaking the neck and decapitating the sheep that he didn't do it there. So it's like almost Ralbag built off of Rambam, and I don't know why Ralbag didn't insert himself here in Shoftim. Maybe he figured Rambam already did. Why do I need to? So, but they're clearly, I would say Rambam inspired Ralbag. That's how I would say this here. But it's fascinating. In both instances, the Torah is saying, we don't want you to go through with this. We don't want you to kill this animal in such a cruel fashion. What the Torah wants, though, is in the case of our Parsha and Shoftim, we want the killer to be found. We want you to create a whole hullabaloo, and that's going to shake it up, and you're going to create the buzz. Find the killer. We want to get a dangerous person off the streets, and we want to serve justice. We don't want to walk away from this murdered victim by saying, okay, we decapitated a calf, all is good now. It's not all good. There's still a killer on the loose, and there's still a family who never felt any kind of justice. It's not all good. That's not the end all. The Rambam is learning the real end all is that by going through this process, hopefully it'll never come to it, because again, and he even spells it out, what the Gemara says is, besides for being terribly cruel to decapitate the animal in this fashion, you got to hack it from the neck, but also whatever land that was done on, that land could never be used for farming again. So now there's a real incentive on the landowner to say, you know what, if I didn't have a reason to find the killer before, now I've really got a good reason I want to find him, because I want to be able to use that land. That Rambam develops this further. So the whole goal of this is to hopefully that it'll never come to it. The Torah doesn't want us to come to actually going through it, the process. You don't see this in the Psukim here, but this is the way Rambam is learning it based on the Gemara. The whole goal is not to just say, okay, let's wash our hands and have the elders say, we're not responsible, good, everyone go on with your life. That's not good. The killer's still on the loose. The family hasn't had closure. The real goal is that to create a buzz so we'll find the killer. And Ralbag wants to take that same idea, I would say the same concept, and say back in Sefer Shmos and Parshas B'Shalach, the real goal is the Torah wants the farmer to redeem the firstborn donkey with a sheep and give it to the Kohen. The only way out is by killing it in such a cruel fashion. Who would want to do that? So now that's not an option. I may as well go give it to the Kohen. That was the goal in both of these cases. It made me very happy to see this because I felt like I had a new understanding of this. I want to just share with you on page 3. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there's one of the Balei Tosfos has a commentary to the Torah. It's not used so often, but I see it quoted every now and then. We've used it once or twice. It's called Bechor Shor, and the Bechor Shor adds one more detail. Bechor Shor adds another detail is, you know what? Another goal of creating all this buzz, aside from finding the killer, And I can't believe I never thought about this till I saw him. He says you might also solve an aguna issue. This murdered victim communication, it was not instant communication like what we have now. In the time of Tanakh, here was his victim. And what are we going to do? Well, we'll bury him. But if we bury him, word may never get out enough details about who this fellow was that the family will ever have closure, that the wife will know that she's a proper widow, that she could remarry, and that the kids could start the inheritance process. Bechor Shor adds another detail. By creating all this buzz, not only are we going to potentially find the killer, but by creating all this buzz, we'll be able to properly identify the victim and allow word to get out there back to this widow so she can mourn properly as a widow and she'll be able to move on with her life and she won't be stuck as an aguna, as a woman chained in a dead marriage, and the kids could inherit their father's estate. That's another benefit that comes from this as well. I had never thought of that. But what's fascinating is what do we know about Rambam? Rambam is known to be the ultimate rationalist. He's known, when you study him, he's always rational. He does not get involved with mystical ideas. But what did Rambam do here with his understanding of Egla Rufa? He tells us there's a very practical, rational outcome of this, that we want to find the killer. And this will help us find the killer, get this dangerous man, this dangerous animal. We'll get him off the streets. He'll be brought to justice. The family will have closure. That was Rambam's very practical, rational approach to how to understand the mitzvah of Egla Rufa. It should never come to to chopping off its head. The whole goal is to create the buzz that will find the killer. And Bechor Shor adds this other very practical idea that the wife of the victim won't be left as an aguna. But again, Rambam's goal is that we're going to find the killer. I want to share with you a very mystical approach that I saw. I chanced on this last year, and this is fascinating, that this also wants to learn the goal is to find the killer, but in a very mystical way. That somehow the ritual of Egla Arufa could enable us to find the killer, but in a very mystical way. Let's see. We're going to see here a source from the Shnei Luchos Habris. The Shnei Luchos Habris was lovingly referred to as the Shalah, because that's the acronym, Shnei Luchos Habris, Shin Lamed Hey. So he's lovingly called the Shalah. His name was Rabbi Horowitz. I believe it was I forgot his first name. It's on the tip of my tongue. But Rabbi Horowitz, he grew up in Germany, made Aliyah, lived in Israel. He was one of the mystics who make his way up to Tzfat and Tiberia. And there's the grave of the Shalah is up there in that area. You can see it to this day. So let's see what the Shalah writes here. And this is fascinating. He says, we're on page 3, towards the bottom. V'inyan egla arufa hu gam ken chesed. This mitzvah of egla arufa that God gave to us is really a chesed. It's kindness. Ki hu yikra deshichvi v'yikra dechaye. It benefits the one who's dead, and it benefits the one who's alive. Yikra deshichve. How does it benefit the one who's dead? Kimitoch ma'aseh efshar sheyiskal harotzeach. Because of this whole ritual, that'll help us find the killer. Again, Rambam would say, yeah, in a very rational way, it'll help us find the killer because it'll create a buzz, and no one wants to see this happen. The landowner doesn't want to lose the land. Everyone's going to work harder to find the killer, and we'll find it. V'az yasu bo nakama. And then we could, I don't want to say nakama like, okay, we got vengeance, but it means we'll bring justice. This killer will be brought to justice. We'll get a killer off the streets. V'chein kasav harav Rabbi Menachem. Now, Rabbi Menachem, who he quotes is Rabbi Menachem Recanati or Recanati, depending on how you pronounce it. He was a very famous Italian Kabbalist. So he's going to quote Rabbi Menachem Recanati. There's a wine that's named Recanati wine. Whenever I see that wine, I always think that's fascinating. But apparently that was the name of the city in Italy, the town in Italy where he came from. So it says there is the Menachem Recanati. Again, I tried to find this in the Recanati. I don't know if I was successful. I remember looking last year to try to find it. But he quotes the Recanati, and I take the Shalah's word for it. He says, Zelashono, here's his way, here's how he says it. La'arofes ha'egla b'nachal esan. We're supposed to break the neck of this calf or decapitate it in a barren valley. Tam mitzvazu. What's the reason? What's the theory behind this? Lefisha mitoch pirsum zeh yiskala rotzeach. Is that by the pirsum, by the publicity that is created through this, we'll hopefully find the killer. So initially I'm thinking, that's wild. That's Rambam. Rambam's the hyper-rationalist, and the Recanati is going with the Rambam. Recanati was oh, I'm sorry. This is I don't know if this is the Rekanati. It might be there's another. It probably was because there's another Kabbalist was Rav Menachem Azaria Mipano. So if it's ever Rabbi Menachem Azaria, they'll say Rabbi Menachem Azaria. If it's just Rabbi Menachem, it's Rabbi Menachem Rekanati. So I was right in that. I'm sorry. I take that back. So it's the Rekanati. So I was shocked. The Rekanati is known to be mystical, very Kabbalistic, and he looks like he's going like the Rambam. But let's read a little further. Ki kapara surura sarer. Because this kapara, he says, you'll see it'll come around and find the rebellious one. The hahoreg, the one who was the killer, hiko oref velopanim, probably also killed him to the back, not to the face. Beseser velopirsum, killed him in quiet and not in publicity. So it sounds like this is saying it's all like mita keneged mita, how we're killing this animal is in some kind of fashion is how the victim was murdered. The kasher haya ador zakai, and here's the key line: when the generation was worthy, something mystical would happen. In other words, he's saying it's not like the Rambam, that it was a very practical way how we'll find the killer. Something magical would happen. Hayu yotzim mina para, after this cow or this young calf was killed, exiting its body, tolaim, worms, as it would start to decompose, worms would exit its corpse, v'holchim, and all those worms would crawl, lebeis harotzeach etzlo. They would crawl, these worms would leave the body of this decapitated calf, and they would go, and they would basically leave a trail to the killer. So the way the Rekanati wants to learn this isn't this fascinating? It's the same ultimate goal of that Rambam writes. Rambam writes that the whole goal of Egla Rufa is to help us find the killer. The Rekanati also wants to say it'll help us find the killer, but not in the rational way that Rambam spells it out. It's a very rational way. We're going to create a whole buzz. We'll create a whole hullabaloo. The landowner's not going to want to lose his land. Everyone will double their efforts. We're going to get Sherlock Holmes on the case. Watson's going to come out. Everyone's going to be there. We're going to take out our magnifying glasses, fingerprint, and we're going to find the killer. That's Rambam. The Rekanati that the Shalah is quoting is saying something magical, mystical is going to happen. When the generation deserved it, meaning if there was really a generation that was righteous, after the ritual of Egla Rufa would take place, hopefully it wouldn't come to it, like Rambam, but if it did take place, something mystical and magical would happen. As the body of that Egla would decompose, worms would exit its body and march their way to the house of the killer. And that would help reveal the killer and bring justice. I saw that and I was shocked. I said, that's wild because it's really the ultimate goal is what Rambam had. But Rambam is the rationalist, give a very rational way how it's going to lead to finding the killer. And then here's the Kabbalistic way is very mystical. And then I saw, let's go to page 4. One more source says this. Look at one of the Targumim. We know there's the Aramaic translations of the Torah. One of them is called Targum Yonasan, or sometimes Yonasan ben Uziel. There's a debate as to who the author was. Was it really the Tana Yonasan ben Uziel? Was it later? It's always called the Targum Yonasan, and it's in your Mikros Gedolos Chumash. It's viewed as a serious resource. And you'll see the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel has in many editions what's called the Perush Yonasan, a commentary. And I want to share with you, we'll look at the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel on Pasuk Ches 8, that which is here in our parsha. Our parsha, remember, if you go back to page 1, you'll see what was Pasuk Ches. Pasuk Ches was Kaper la'amcha. God, this is what the elders say. God, please atone your people, Yisrael Asher Padisa, that you redeemed, Hashem, Val Titen Dam Naki B'Kerev Amcha. Don't let innocent blood be spilled in the midst of your land in Israel, V'nikaper la'madam, and the blood should be atoned for them. Let's look what Targum Yonasan says on Ches. So I have it both, you'll see it in the original, and you'll also see it, I've got an English translation I found online. So he says, Kahanya Yemrun, the priest shall say, Kaper Lamach Yisrael, let there be expiation, so let there be atonement for your people Israel. Deferakta Hashem, that God Almighty, you redeem them. V'lo tishavei chovas adam zakai bego amach Yisrael, and don't let there be the guilt of innocent blood upon your people Israel. Ugalei man, is that man or man? Ugalein man katle, and let him who has done the murder be revealed. Gale means be revealed. Let him be revealed. Part of the prayer of the Kohanim was, help us find him. And this is after the Egla Rufa has been decapitated. That's when they're making the speech. Help us find him. V'yischaper lo al dema. If we find him, then it'll be kapara. In other words, it's not that this ritual brings kapara. By finding the killer, there will be atonement on the people of Israel. He says, "V'ischaper lon al dama umin yad naf." Oh, so then he says as follows: immediately, what would happen? Min yad, immediately, nafkin nechil demoranin. There would come forth a swarm of worms. Migo parasa. So he says from the eglasa, from the excrement. I don't think he means excrement. He probably means from the decomposing corpse of the eglasa of the heifer of the young calf. Nagdin, it would spread out. Va'azlin ad asra de katole, and it would move to the place where the murder was. Taman. V'salkin alo, and they would crawl all over him, meaning he's got a little different. The worms would crawl over him. The achtin beidina, and then the policeman would grab him, yaseh, v'dayen yaseh, and then they would judge him. So he's, again, this idea that the Shalok quoted from the Rekanati is much earlier than the Rekanati. It's going back to the Targum Yonasan. Again, this is a classic example of every translation is a commentary, because this is not in the verse. The translation of Yonasan here is adding something. And now look in the bottom there. You see beneath where I have Targum Yonasan, I said Perish Yonasan. Look what he's got in Pasuk Ches. It's on. There's two columns. You'll see in the first line there, on the bottom first line. Nachil Dimion. He says there would be a swarm of worms. Perish. What does that mean? Kibbutz shel Tulaim. A kibbutz is a gathering of worms. V'hu lashon Gemara, and this is a Talmud terms. Nachil shel dvarim. Same thing, like a gathering. A nachil is a swarm of bees. Next one, migu parasa. So that literally, migav parasa means it meant from the excrement of it. So he says it doesn't literally mean the excrement. It says perish me tiburo, means it would exit the belly button. It would exit like the opening of the. It doesn't mean from its excrement. It means from the body cavity of this egel of this young heifer. Umaisi la rekanati. Now look where he quotes the rekanati. Umaisi la Rekanati, the Rekanati brings this down. So in other words, he's saying it wasn't the Shalak quoted the Rekanati. The Rekanati wasn't the original source. He's saying the original source was his Targum Yonasan. The Rekanati brings this down on Daf Kuf Ayin Hey, Paragimel. Now look at this. The Gores, and he has slightly different words. He says, the Gores, his words is Rimsa Migu Parasa, Ramu Lidavar, Vyasa Tavar. V'asa v'ata tivaer damanaki. Now he points out this is fascinating. The last words. He goes, look at the words v'ata tivaer damanaki. The last words in pasuk tes is v'ata starts with a vav, tivaer starts with a taf, hadam starts with a hey, hanaki with a hey mikirbecha. So let's see what he says. He says v'ata tivaer damanaki. He goes, if you look at the words v'ata tivaer damanaki. My mistake. Don't look at the first letters. Look at the last letters of those four words. Va'ata is a hey, tivaer is a resh, dam is a mem, hanaki is a yud. Sof tevos, the last of those four words, the last letters of those four words spells rima. That spells worm. Because again, you have va'ata is a hey, you have tivaer is a resh, dam is a mem, hanaki is a yud. Those last four words spell rima. So he's pointing out, and that's what I have there. Those last four words spell rima, and that's what he's saying. Rearranging the end of those four words spell rima, wormy. So he's saying there's even an illusion. This Targum Yonasan, you may wonder, where did he get this from? Rekanati says, you know where he got it from? The Rekanati says there's an illusion in pasuk tes that when it says v'atatever adam naki, there's an illusion. The word rima shows up if you look carefully. That's where Targum Yonasan got this from. So here's this wild idea that the whole goal of Egla Arufa was to find the killer. Rambam says that would occur in a very practical way. We didn't want to go through the process. And then what the more mystical approach that Targum Yonasan and Rekanati say is that if we had to go through with it, we were absolutely unsuccessful in finding the killer, despite all the hullabaloo and the buzz that was created, and we have to go through with the Egla Arufa ceremony. Going through with that ceremony will still enable us to find the killer because something mystical happens. Worms will exit the body and will go to the killer and will cover him. The evidence, it's like no matter how much he tries to sweep him off, they'll be there on him, and then Bastin will grab him, and that's that. That is fascinating. Like some mystical, something min hashamayim happens. So again, it's two very different approaches. One's mystical, one's rational, but it's all going for the same goal. That the ultimate goal of Egla Arufa was to find the killer and get him off the road, get him out of society. I want to share with you one last source, and I thought this was incredible. This last source on the bottom of page 4, this is Tam Vedas, this is Rav Moshe Sternbach in Yerushalayim. So he brings down this Targum Yonasan, and he said, let's see what he says. Nechaper la madam. So he says, Rashi says, Perish Rashi, Akasav Mivasram, that the Torah guarantees us Misha Kain, that if we go through this ritual of Egla Rufa, Yechuper Lam Avon, the Jewish people will achieve atonement. So it seems odd. What does that mean? The killer's still out there. How did we achieve atonement? So he says, yeah, look at the Targum Yonasan, and that'll tell you how we achieve atonement. I in Targum Yonasan, Shalak Kibbutz Shel Taloi Megla Rufa Ad Makom Meratzech, that a swarm of worms will leave the decomposing body of the Egla Rufa and it'll go find the murderer. The Alu Alav will go up on him. The Tasu Asov, it'll cover him, and then Basin will grab him and they'll put him on trial and they'll get him off the street. Before Mizah, what do we see from this? Sheina Kapara. Where's the kapara from Egla Rufa according to Targum Yonasan? It's not that, okay, we broke a cow's neck and they washed their hands. Okay, we have kapara. The kapara is that the guilty party is brought to justice. Real kapara, as far as God's concerned, kapara comes when guilty parties are brought to justice. The innocent person's blood, the blood can't be arrested as long as the murderer is out there running around. So he says, "V'davar zeh nechama hilanu." Reb Sternbach says that should offer us some consolation. Shenaharos dam. There have been rivers of Jewish blood, shenivshechu miYisrael, that have been spilled of Jews throughout the ages, b'chol hadoros, in all generations, and unfortunately, the ones that are most recent come to mind. Lo niskaper. They are not atoned. V'nikisi damam lo nikesi. Hashem says, the Navi says that I will bring vengeance. God says, I will bring vengeance. Vasira kodesh baruch hu linkom mehem ki lo yichupar lahem ki im bedam shovcho. The only way that victims can finally be at peace is if the perpetrators of those crimes are brought to justice. And he's saying here is that if the Targum Yonasan is learning that's the goal of Egla Rufa, that the Torah says there will be kapara, but how's there kapara? How's the victim have any consolation? The murderer is out there. The perpetrator of the crime is out there. So again, according to the Rambam, it would be that no, the ultimate goal is that we're going to find him and he'll be brought to justice. And according to the more mystical approach of the Targum Yonasan and the Rekanati, something mystical is going to occur that's going to tip Basin off and Alpha is going to be brought to justice. But ultimately, there will be justice. And what he's saying is, and the Torah is defining for us, atonement only comes when there's justice. And the guarantee is that we can look forward to, and this is what we say that the Navi guarantees us, there will be justice. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Dayan Ames, he's the ultimate judge, the true judge, and he will make sure that all those who have perpetrated crimes against Am Yisrael, against the Jewish people, they will be brought to justice. Sometimes we're able to see this in our day and age, but ultimately the true source of justice and that ultimate judgment day will be in the Yemos HaMashiach, and our Nevi'im guarantee us that we will one day witness us. So Rich Sternbach is pointing out this could offer us a little bit of nekama, because the Torah says there's going to be kapara, but our commentaries say, how could there be kapara? The only way there's kapara is if the perpetrator is brought to justice, and God willing, that will happen. So I thought this is fascinating. I think this adds so much light to the whole concept of Egla Arufa. I think this really, really adds so much to it. And I was so happy when I chanced upon these resources last year. I hope this is something that adds to your understanding of the Parsha, and I hope that when we read this Shabbos, this could help us understand Egla Arufa a little bit better, and even in Parshas B'Shalach, understand decapitating that sheep for the fellow who didn't want to give it to the Kohen for redemption of the firstborn donkey. I hope that helps gives us a better understanding of all that, and I also hope this last piece from Rav Sternbach could give us some consolation of what we could look forward to. That we live in a world where God does demand justice, and ultimately there will be justice. It's something that our Nevi'im, our prophets, have told us about. I'm going